So, chapter 6, citizenship. This is going to be the last chapter we talk about, but here is where you can find all the information for the chapter, objectives, purpose, textbook chapters for the unit, and then the presentation is linked. Okay? Good? All right, good stuff. Here's your vocab to start the chapter. So we're going to get to, I don't know how far we're going to actually get, but we'll just start off with this. So there you go. Yeah, when it's chapter 6. All right, so we got alien, resident alien, non-resident alien, enemy alien, and illegal alien. So I'm sure you heard of these terms before, but is that what it said as a definition?
I know what this kind of alien.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Just making sure. Oh, great,
Definitions.
great movie.
They're good movie.
There, okay, I can scroll a little. Foreign. It's giving me the TV show.
Did you write definition beside it?
Yeah, I just have to scroll a little.
Eden, what are you smirking about? You're scaring me. Oh my gosh. All right. So let's talk about it here quick. And try to finish up the presentation by Wednesday, okay? And for the remainder of the week, since we'll have 2-hour delay schedules, I'll put out your study guide, have that all ready to go for you guys. And then next week, actually, it's going to be a little different. So Friday, I'm not going to be here. Monday, yeah. Monday, I won't be here. Tuesday, I won't be here. I know. So, we're gonna do project. I know because I gave it to you early. You're a good kid. I'm gonna go. Maybe Yari's right. All right, here we go. So citizenship and equal justice, as we're looking at this chapter, technically a 14-year book, but in the flow that we're going, 6. I wanted to go over political parties and more about political participation, which maybe change that up here in the future. have that as like a chapter one or two. But anyway, there you go. So sneak peek. We're just going to look about how citizenship for many, right? When it deals with immigration, when it deals with our rights promised to us as a citizen compared to, let's say, an immigrant, right? How that might be different, right? So illegal immigration, especially with the topic today when it comes to current events, what I talked about past couple of weeks, um, with Abrego Garcia, I believe his name is. Anyway, technically he was a resident alien, so he's not supposed to be here legally, but he was deported to this prison in El Salvador, and many people were saying, hey, he needs his rights are still promised to him through the 14th Amendment, which is true. And again, we'll see where this goes. Right. So when it comes to both political parties, they have a stance on it depending on the views of it. And well, more keeps coming out about his background record, which isn't the greatest, right? So it's one of those sticky situations where, man, it just doesn't know. Don't no one really knows how it's going to kind of play out. All right. So section one, when it comes to our country, right? When it comes to our constitution. So waves of immigration throughout US history. An alien is a person living in a country in which they're not a citizen. So many enter with authorization. So when it comes to a visa, passport, right, the proper documentation. Those who do not come in legally are called illegal aliens. All right. And I know when it comes to terminology, many people are saying, what about um, immigrants? It's like, okay, well, I don't know. So when you hear undocumented immigrants, a lot of times they refer to them as illegal aliens. So it's just terminology. And as time kind of goes by, when it comes to stating that, it does sound a little harsh. So either way, this is the proper terminology. It's in your book. So yeah. And even still this day, refer to people coming into the nation as aliens. Right away, you probably think of what, the extraterrestrials, huh? Yeah, that's what I do too when I think of it. All right, so legally, alien, illegally, illegal alien. Not too tough. You guys good? Oh, you want me to go back? Okay, no problem. No problem. So actually now, kind of going through this process to get my real ID so I can go into some of these government buildings on the senior trip. That's why I won't be here Monday and Tuesday next week. So we'll see how that goes. It's supposed to be coming in the mail, but don't know. What? I can't go in the White House, even though that's been canceled, I think. Yeah. Yeah, they're not doing it.
And you in the White House.
Tour it,
Cheers.
I guess. I mean, it's one thing being there. I don't know.
It
I think the White House did.
wasn't that, I think,
Oh,
like it wasn't anyone. Like it was the White House. Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah, I think it's them. I think they're like, yeah, you know what? No tours during this week. Probably because there's a lot going on with these trade deals. I know we have to meet with 170 countries, so it's like, uh,
Dealing with
uh,
a whole group of kids.
yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking they're like, hey, for right now, we got a lot going on. We got a lot of movement coming in the White House right now. I mean, it is all the time that way, but now more than ever, just seems like there's so much going on in the news with it, with trade deals, with the wars. Oh my gosh, it's nonstop. But we'll see. I think even just getting Smithsonian's though, like some of those museums, like I need it. I think because it's a federal building. You need it to get into federal buildings and with flying. But they said they're gonna do like an extension with flying. So I don't know. Kind of up in the air. It's wild. All right, here you go. Classifying aliens. So these were your terms for today. Resident alien. So a resident alien is a person from a foreign nation who has established permanent residence in the United States. So typically when you think of a resident alien, they go through the country legally with the proper documentation. right? They're living here, but they were born in another country. Obviously, that happens a lot. I got a figure on, well, a graph on one of the slides here. Might be the next one, maybe the one after. But it just shows a little bit about the population here in the United States where they're foreign born. So you can imagine it has increased a lot over the years. Anyway, non-resident alien. So a non-resident alien is a person from a foreign country who expects to stay in the US for a short time. So typically, this might be, let's say, a foreign leader coming to meet with, let's say, the president. We're just talking about that when it comes to these trade deals, right? These leaders here all around the world are coming to try to negotiate in order to try to have better trade opportunities and deals, maybe to eliminate tariffs that the United States has put on since Liberation Day. So it's one of those things where, again, you have, again, leaders from all around the world coming in. Doesn't have to be a leader, could be just a citizen coming to visit. A lot of times they do study abroad programs, is what I'm talking about. So in college, if you wanted to go study abroad, you take classes over in another country and you go to explore, you get to see some of the, historical landmarks and buildings and everything, which is pretty cool opportunity. Um, Performers, right? You think about many of our singers, songwriters, and all around the world, they go to other countries to perform. So that's what you can maybe consider. All right, enemy alien. So an enemy alien is a citizen of a nation in which the with which the U.S. is at war with. So maybe we're not too keen with them, right? Maybe we don't have to necessarily be at war with the country, but we are adversaries in many regards. So when you think about some of the prisoners that we have from other countries, from other areas, terrorist groups, again, we have them in parts of, let's say, prisons in the United States. Or when you think about Guantanamo Bay, right? There for a long time, this was an area of enemies of the United States would be placed. And there's a way to try to have it and keep it in an area that is very similar to the climate of Middle East, right? Even though, which is our, I think you talked about Guantanamo Bay earlier in the year. And it's not good enough. Anyway, that's what an enemy alien is. So you think about prisoners that even the United States, that Russia might have, or countries that are again that are not happy with us. Hostages, right? These are examples, right? Typically, hostage is a different situation. Actually, current event. Charlotte, did you get yours done? Oh, too busy walking around, roaming around the homes, huh? Anyway, so there's actually a last American hostage release. There you go, Charlotte. That's a good one. Return home, I think today or just released by Hamas. So there you go. There you go. All right, illegal alien. It says it in a name here about a person who comes to the United States without a legal permit, any documentation, such as a passport, visa, entry permit. And again, most enter through the border, right? Typically the southern border, but some through the north. Anyway, when you think about illegal immigration, it has been a problem, an issue for a certain amount of years. President Trump, this was his focus, and honestly, he's doing a pretty good job with it. Both sides agree. Yes,
So
Caden.
like, if, someone requested asylum here, would that be a refugee or would that?
Oh, I missed refugee. Yeah. So refugee is people who are fleeing to escape persecution from whatever said country they're in. So whenever they're in danger, at war, or maybe certain organizations or groups are trying to hunt them down within their own lands, like they leave and try to seek refuge in another area where they're safer. So they're trying to seek sanctuary. Does that make sense? So refugees are people that flee a country for protection. Um, this happens a lot, especially in the Middle East. A lot of these terrorist organizations and groups are going after people of their differences, so they flee here to the United States. Also, maybe it's devastating weather, right? So when you think about some of, maybe a hurricane or a cyclone or tsunami, Many people are displaced without anything. So where do they go? A lot of times we'll bring them in for a little bit, and then whenever their homes or infrastructure is rebuilt, we send them back, right? Typically, you see it with wars, though. People flee an area because they're um, being marginalized, right? Being their homes are being destroyed. Like with Ukraine, many millions of people left as the war was going down because they're trying to seek refuge, seek protection. Yeah, yeah. I skipped over that, so thank you. Appreciate it. All right, alien rights. So, like I mentioned, when it comes to the rights of many of the aliens here in the United States, they do have a lot of protected rights. And that's what I was talking about with this situation here with this Abrego Garcia and how many people were saying that, oh, this is wrong, what's happening, which it yeah, I mean, Supreme Court said in a 9-0 decision that his due process, his 14th Amendment, is still promised to him. It's not like they just take that away. So even though they might not be a citizen of the United States, even though they might be here, let's say just for a short time, they still have the rights in the United States, right? The exceptions of it is they cannot vote in federal elections. They are exempt from military and jury duty, and their movement is restricted. So most report whenever they do leave or do go to a new state or an area. In other words, they want to try to keep tabs on them, right? So, like I said, for this Abrego Garcia, he was here, say, an alien from the area. So when it comes to his immigration, he's been in the United States for a little bit of time. He does have a criminal background, so it's one of those things where a lot of people, especially on the other side of the aisle, when it comes to politics, right, they look at it and say, "Oh, you know what? Right, he's a criminal. He deserves to be down there." And other people are saying on the other side of the aisle, say, "Hey, no, wait, 14th Amendment, he deserves his rights," right? Which is true, but at the same time, well, we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. You want me to go back? All right, there you go. No problem. So again, movement is restricted. So if you are here and you're not a legal, or sorry, if you're not a um, full resident, then they want to make sure exactly where you're going so they can kind of keep track of it, right? As immigration may get out of hand, it puts a lot of strains on resources and infrastructure in many of these cities and towns and areas, right? So you think about a lot of the cities and towns in the southern border, right? With illegal immigration, it causes a big concern, a big problem, big strain on resources because now you're adding a bunch of people that technically they didn't think was going to be there. So it does cause big, big problems. Obviously, when it comes to drugs, when it comes to smuggling different types of paraphernalia over the borders, that's a big problem too. And when it comes to criminals from other areas and other countries coming across, let's say, the southern border, right? That it's not a good thing either because you're putting many U.S. citizens at risk. All right, controlling immigration. So over the years, obviously you can think about it, right? So during certain events, maybe a pandemic, right? Or maybe certain wars or conflicts, we can limit immigration coming to the United States. So when you think about immigration from areas and you think about countries that we're at war with, obviously we're gonna cut immigration off from these lands, these areas, because we don't want to see any attacks internally, right? We do a pretty good job, obviously, when it comes to our police force here, our national security, and bringing in immigrants from these areas we are at war with could cause a lot of harm. And again, if we do, there's definitely a screening process to make sure that they're not going to maybe cause any problems or cause, let's say, an internal strike. During COVID-19, another good example, all the countries were locking down because they want to try to prevent the spread of the virus. So when it comes to immigration, it just depends. This Johnson Act, I put this in here because there was a system of quotas that was, well, created during the time in order to try to try to bring in certain immigrants from certain areas. And the reason for is because they thought, well, people from Western Europe, they're going to offer a lot of benefit to the United States when it comes to the Industrial Revolution, when it comes to their technical advancements or economic decisions or systems. And we want to get a little bit more of that, right? We think that they're better people compared to other countries, maybe not so much. So, in other words, this Johnson Act, this was a way to try to set up immigration, only bring in people from Western Europe, right? Looking at other areas like, Central and South America, we limited parts of Asia. We limited their ability to immigrate to the United States. In other words, I know it sounds terrible, but during the time, they thought that these other areas were only going to bring us down as a country, right? And again, looking back at it now, probably not the right thing to say, or obviously put out as a policy. But in the 1920s, their thought process was we're only going to bring in people that can benefit the country, right? When it comes to work, when it comes to advancement, right? Um, yeah. So with that led to 80% decrease in immigration. Also, you got to imagine this was during the Red Scare too, the fear of communism spreading. So, especially from Eastern Europe, we prevented a lot of people coming in. And well, this is going to kind of bite us in the butt if you think about it, as World War II will come around shortly after the 1920s, and many Jewish people from Germany were coming to the United States to seek refuge. And we said, nope, sorry, go back. And well, that obviously wasn't too good, huh? Man, oh man. All right, and then that kind of leads to this Chinese Exclusion Act. Like I talked about, this was to try to prevent many of these Asian immigrants from coming into the United States. And again, they thought that they were taking these jobs and positions from people, especially in the West Coast. And they didn't think that they were bringing a lot to the table when it comes to advancement. So again, kind of sad, obviously. And at the timing, this was the believed policy to go by. Obviously, there were some rifts back then. People opposed it, but you can imagine when you think about the United States history over time, we have jumped leaps and bounds, right? We're a lot different than what we were back in the day. Foreign-born population grows, like I mentioned, just what I was talking about when it comes to immigration and how that relates to our population. It has risen quite a bit, quite a bit. And you can kind of see the charts here on when this occurred, when this happened. So just recently, it seemed like our border was wide open, right? We were accepting a lot of people when it comes to immigration. And well, now it's kind of cutting down, right? Especially when it comes to illegal immigration. But I just wanted to show you this chart here. You can kind of see the events that were going on. So right here before World War II, so it kind of jumps up here. Got to imagine a lot of chaos in Europe with World War One, World War II, the rise of dictators, and all that happening. Many people from Europe are like, "I'm getting out of there. I'm going to the United States." So yeah, then you can see it kind of decline here shortly after, and many leaders restricting immigration because it's putting a lot of strain on many of the cities. So Bill Clinton was one of the proponents too of trying to lock down this border. Bush, Barack Obama, actually, yeah, he deported more people than any president in modern history. And then, yeah, now with Trump, his policies are pretty clear here with controlling the border. So, yeah, with Biden's policies, a lot different, right? Um, anyway, like I mentioned, it is a hot topic, and we'll discuss this more tomorrow. But question I want you to think about is going to be your bell ringer tomorrow. What is your position on immigration? There you go. So that's what we'll start off with tomorrow.